Hi, I'm David Plan, a sophomore here at Holyoke High School. Joining us today is Ed Casey from the Sheriff's Department. Today we are going to talk about Text-to-Tip program. First, tell us about your job and what you do.
Okay, my primary function at the Sheriff's Department, I actually work with high-risk offenders. So any inmate that gets sentenced on a firearm charge or any other inmate that we deem high risk based on his criminal history, inmates that are likely to go out in the community and maybe shoot somebody or be involved in a serious crime, those are the guys that I work with. So my primary function is to actually change the criminal thinking. So to work with these offenders periodically throughout their incarceration and try to change their thinking, try to encourage them to go out there and be a positive, productive member in the community. So that's my primary role. In addition to that, the sheriff allows me to work with Neighborhood Watch, where I'm the director of our Neighborhood Watch program, where we work with Springfield and Holyoke. In Springfield, we have 10 Neighborhood Watch groups, and in Holyoke, we have 5. And he also has allowed me to, and with the Neighborhood Watch programs, we actually work with the mayor's offices, the police department. So our staff at the Sheriff's Department actually get to interact with law enforcement as well as community members. So what our primary job is with Neighborhood Watch is to really engage the community, teach the community on ways of observing information, ways of reporting information, and getting the information where it needs to go.
Okay. Tell us about the Text-to-Tip program.
Yeah, the Text-to-Tip is actually it's a vehicle that we use to actually get information to where it needs to go anonymously. What we found out in Neighborhood Watch over the years is that people in the community don't feel safe to report crime. They don't feel comfortable calling 911. They don't feel comfortable calling the non-emergency numbers because they're afraid that their names are going to get out there. So the Text-to-Tip program, it was actually started 2 years ago where the sheriff got together with the Springfield mayor, the Holyoke police chief, the Springfield Police Commissioner, the DA's office, state police, and they all talked about getting this system. Now, Crime Stoppers is a national model that they do all over the country. So when they all got together, they decided how they were going to set it up. So they set it up where in the Sheriff's Department, we would actually be the hub when a tip comes in. So the way the Text-to-Tip program works here is when a tipster sends in a tip from his cell phone, it'll actually go to a server in Canada where the identifiers are actually stripped off the phone. And then it'll send a text to the tipster, and it'll come to our computer in the Sheriff's Department. So for every tip that comes in from Holyoke, we'll just hit one button, and it'll go right to several people in the Holyoke Police Department. For every tip that comes in from the Springfield, we just hit one button in our Sheriff's Department, it goes right to the Springfield Police Department. And every other tip that comes in from every other city and town in Hampden County, we just send out to the state police.
How has the response been for the program so far?
So I say it's been about 2 years, and we've probably received approximately 500 tips each year, coming in approximately 500. And we've had all kinds of tips. I mean, tips that have led to drug cases, tips that have led to guns, tips that have led even on murder cases. So it's been fabulous.
What is it important for people to get involved, or why is it important for people to get involved?
Yeah. You know, one of the things we learned in Neighborhood Watch that people were really hesitant to get involved because of that fear factor. They were really afraid to get involved, figuring that if they called the police or if they got information to where it needed to go on crimes or gangs or guns, that maybe something was going to happen to them. So what we knew, it was very important to get the community to be involved because the police can't be everywhere. But citizens are living in their neighborhoods 24 hours a day. They're the ones that really have access to what's happening in the community. So like I say, working with Neighborhood Watch, we're trying to engage them, trying to teach them, trying to encourage them and empower them and let them know that really the community becoming a safer place is really in their hands. So you ask why it's important for the community to get involved? Because that's who has all the information. They have the information where the guns are. They have information on who's doing the drug dealing. They even have information on how these drugs transactions are actually taking place. And the problem is people are afraid to get that information to where it needs to go. So Text-to-Tip is a home run in giving them a vehicle that they can send a text. And when the identifiers are stripped off their phone, we have no idea who sent the text. All we see is an alias code, because when the tipster sends it and it goes to Canada and it strips the identifiers, it actually sends them an alias code. It'll come to their cell phone. That's the only thing we see on our screen is an alias code. So if it's LB34, we only know that we got a tip from LB34. At that point, we can actually send them a response back. Text-to-Tip is actually two-way communication. So even though it's anonymous, it's two-way communication. So we know that this vehicle, along with some other anonymous reporting numbers, are ways of getting the community involved, and it's ways of getting the crime out of our neighborhoods because the community folks have the information.
You were at Donahue School recently. How did that go?
Yeah, it went very well. When I went up to Donahue, I had the opportunity to talk to both faculty, parents, and students. I did a little presentation on Text-A-Tip, and it was good because even a lot of the folks that were there really had no idea that Text-A-Tip is really anonymous. People can't imagine, because you have this two-way communication going back and forth, they can't fathom that it's actually anonymous, but it's totally anonymous. So it was really good. It gave us an opportunity to, one, interact, and then answer some specific questions that were asked. So it was really good up there. We had a great response.
Is there anything else about the program you would want to tell us?
Every time I go out, even though I tell everybody when I do the presentations on Text-A-Tip, I tell everybody about 3 or 4 times that it truly is totally anonymous. People still have a hard time believing because of that two-way communication. So the biggest thing I always want to reiterate over and over and over is that it's totally anonymous. And I ask people, send a text from your phone right now so you can see 274-637 is the number you send it to. Our code that you have to type in for Hampden County is SOLVE. So SOLVE plus the message, hit send, and watch what happens. And you see the alias that comes on your phone? That's all we see inside our computer in the Hampden County Sheriff's Department. And that's what we send out to the police.
Thank you for joining us.
No, thank you so much.
Now, does anybody have any questions?
I have a question. My friend was giving out these rubber bands, the latex bands, and it said Text-A-Tip and Solve. Is that the thing that you were talking about?
Yeah, in fact, those green and white bands, the Youth Task Force actually put those together. They ordered them, and we've passed them out. I worked with the Youth Task Force to go do some presentation. I actually trained them on what Text-A-Tip was, and then they went out to the community and did some skits where they put together some cardboard and dressed in some costumes, and they actually did Text-A-Tip presentations at the community center.
Let's say I was in a situation where I saw somebody die, and I text you guys. How fast would you get on that?
They tell us it's within a minute, but all the times that I've seen it go through, it's within 15 seconds. And you'll know when you do a test. And you all have cell phones. You can grab some cards on your way out. The number you're texting to is 274-637. Put solve, space, test. And you watch how fast that response comes to your phone, and it tells you what your alias is. So as soon as it gets to your phone, it comes to our computers. I say it's about 15 seconds. So it's that fast.
Let's say supposedly something does happen and I do end up in that situation that I text you guys. Is my phone always going to be in your records?
No, that's a good question. No, keep in mind that your phone is never going to be on our records anyway. Only that alias code. But here's something I didn't talk about. The loop of communication could be stopped by us or by you at any time. And it'll tell you that when it sends you your alias code. It'll let you know that you can stop the loop of communication at any time by typing a certain word. And it stops the loop of communication. We won't be able to find LB34. We won't be able to have no more communication with him if you end the loop of communication. And that's a good point, because if somebody was sending a text and then somebody was coming and they wanted to get that off their phone, we wouldn't be able to text you back. So if you were afraid that somebody else was going to see your phone, you can delete it right there. You can type stop, that we're not going to be able to communicate with you anymore. We won't be able to send you another text. And you won't be able to communicate with us once the loop of communication is ended. Whether you end it or we end it, the communication's done. And the only way you can get to us again is if you send a whole new tip. It's a good question.
But wouldn't that be a disadvantage to you guys? Like, if you don't have that loop of communication back to us, like if you guys need some more information about a crime or something that has happened.
Yeah, absolutely. So if you're ever passing out Text-A-Tip cards, encourage the people to keep the loop of communication open until we have all the information, unless they're absolutely in fear that somebody's going to see something on their phone and they have to end the loop of communication. But if you don't want to receive a text back from anybody, you got the information out, you press stop, nothing's coming back to your phone. But yeah, it is a disadvantage if we're not able to communicate and we need additional information. A lot of times people will send a text in, hey, I just seen somebody with a gun, he was driving up Main Street. Is it Main Street in Holyoke? Is it Main Street in Springfield? The first question we ask is, what city was that in? Springfield. So that's very important for us. So yeah, we like to have that loop of communication. But understand that if somebody's in a bad situation and they have to end the loop of communication, it's understandable. But if it's a goodwill person that really wants to get the information to us, he will likely then, when he has an opportunity, send us another text to get us the rest of the information. But he'll have a different alias code.
I have another question. Have you ever been in a situation where somebody just texts you to text you bad information, just like a false murder or something?
Not necessarily that, but we've had, and keep in mind, it's a good point and it's a good question, because keep in mind that information that comes in, it's just information. It's information that's going to get followed up on. David's not going to get arrested because you said David had a gun. It's information. We'll follow up on the information, and if the information proves to be accurate information, or if it could be verified by other sources, then it could probably lead. We go to David, we find the gun on him. Now it was a good source of information. So yeah, there's sometimes people are sending tips and they're bogus tips. So even sometimes people sending stuff in, hey, I thought this was anonymous. This is not anonymous. And then they say something derogatory. We just can end the communication right there. I'm trying to encourage every one of you, even if you've done some things, and even if you're in the middle of doing some things that's not totally right, get off that road. Get on the right track to succeed, because every single one of you can succeed, even if you've made mistakes. And you probably didn't want to hear that message today, but I felt obligated to give it to you. If you want to send a text a tip in, what you do is you dial 274-637 is the number you send your text to. But for Hampden County, the first word that you have to put in the body of the text is solve. So once you enter your number in, 274-637, you want to put solve, then a space, and then the tip. Because the server in Canada, the only way it's going to know exactly where to send the tip is by that keyword. So our keyword in Hampden County is solve. So when it goes to Canada and it goes to the server that strips the identifiers off it, it knows it to send it to the Hampden County Sheriff's Department based on that keyword solve. What I've noticed that folks have done is they forget to put the space. So they put solve and then the, like the word the, all running together with the word solve. It's really important that there's a space there. So the server is going to look for the word solve, and then it'll know to send a tip to Hampden County Sheriff's Department.